Hello friends, this is Carrie and welcome back to I Like Reddit channel. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy. Friends, I'm sorry I've been away for so long. I've been working through some mental health issues and I needed to take a little break from making videos. But friends, I'm back. And today we have 3 stories out of the EntitledParents subreddit. Let's begin. Our first story is posted by Dashing Mason. Karen secretly films me jogging and shows video to my boss. I recently had an emergency appendectomy and the recovery's been slow. I had to take time off from my own athletics, but worse, from coaching in a kids' sports program I'm involved with. The experience made me step back and realize that I built my whole identity around being active and healthy. So the hit to my physical ability took as a result of being sick, plus the healing process had made me feel lost. I've been working to regain the joy I used to experience from exercise without going, "Oh, I used to be so much faster with that," or "Your technique used to be so much stronger," or "You don't fit in anymore," or whatever else, and just enjoy myself regardless of the level that I'm at. But ironically, the anxiety about not being able to do what I used to has made regaining the ability difficult. It made me self-conscious about exercising in public spaces, but I was starting to finally get over it, as friends convinced me the source of all of my concerns was all in my head. There's no way to get back to it other than training. So despite my anxiety, I started running again as soon as the doctor approved it. I went to a local track and just did a few slow laps each morning, building up speed every few days. I've only just been authorized to add some sprints and bodyweight strength training into the mix. Occasionally there's other people at the track, but I didn't really notice because I run with headphones on and I try to zone out in these lighter sessions. But little did I know, my friends were wrong. It was not all in my head. I was being watched, and more than that, I was being judged. My absolute worst nightmare at this stage of building back my strength and speed. On Friday, I was setting up for practice at the kids program, and the head coach asked me to come into his office because a parent had a complaint. A parent I didn't know too well. Karen was there, and he said that she had a specific complaint about me. The meeting almost didn't happen because Karen's initial refusal to put on a mask, required in our facility for now, but her eventual desire to tell on me for whatever she thought she had, overrode her freedoms to infect everyone. I was a bit nervous, as anyone would be, having a meeting with their boss over a complaint, but I figured it was a classic case of, "My kid should start more," or "I know my kid tried out for midfielder, but I want him/her to switch to defense." That kind of rules don't apply to me thing. But instead, I sit in the office and Karen is playing my boss a video of me running on the track that she filmed from afar. It's surrounded by stadium-style risers. I was horrified, both because no one is ever totally used to seeing themselves on video, and because I was just embarrassed about how slow I was. But most importantly because, why was this virtual stranger, I'd only met her personally maybe 4 times ever, filming me while I was running on my own time at a private facility? She then went on to explain how her 8-year-old son, one of the players in my squad, was lapping me in the video and insisting that the coaches need to hold themselves to higher athletic standards than the young players if they want to prepare them for college teams. Again, her son is 8. Apparently her son sometimes would be running at that track while her older child would be practicing on a nearby field. I'd never noticed the kid is still relatively new, and I don't pay much attention to the other people on the track. My boss patiently but firmly explained to Karen that my physical abilities are not the parents' concern, and all personnel are closely managed by the head coaches who understand each unique situation and what's appropriate, and that her son wouldn't be impacted. Karen then went on to say that my being out of shape was probably connected to why I'd been taking so much time off. Technically yes, but it's because I was in the hospital, and complaining that the personnel changeover isn't good for the kids. My boss again reiterated that the head coaches hadn't changed or taken any time off, and that I was still one of the most skilled in my area that I instruct. So this was not her concern. She asked if there was someone else she could speak to, but he explained that he was the owner and founder of the program, so no, there wasn't. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what had happened to me or alluding to health issues to protect my privacy. but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show how ridiculous she was being, and keep her tuition dollars in our program during these difficult times for sports clubs. When I explained, she just turned to the boss and said, "Well, maybe you should furlough her until she healed and bring in a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him." My boss respects what I was trying to do, but made it clear that we weren't going any further with this strategy to avoid setting precedent of sharing coach's personal circumstances, and telling her why people take time off and what their health status is really none of her concern, because the program manages that and makes the appropriate decisions. She kept kicking up a fuss, but the coach told her that he had to get back out onto the field, back to her son and everyone else's kid. She started leaving, but continued fussing about how she was not satisfied and would not be making recommendations to other parents. Pro tip: not the way to conduct yourself with people who make recommendations to scout concerning family, culture, / interactions. The coach wasn't prepared to leave. Instead, he stopped her in her tracks to tell her that if she was found surveilling or otherwise harassing any other staff members again, that she would be permabanned from the program. No games or practices, no team social events, no presence in our buildings, or clemency. So that was pretty satisfying. Her son was good, average kid, and I'm glad the consequences were focused on booting her rather than limiting his opportunities for having fun playing. So then we went out and had a great, happy, safe practice. This was still a pretty upsetting event for me personally though, and I'll never unsee that discouraging video of me running, but it was ultimately reassuring to know that the other staff has my back. Leaving Karen in the dust is another step on the road of recovery. If you're enjoying the content so far, please put a heart emoji in the comments section down below. Our next story is by EU Bose de Brat. The time a couple of my employees were extremely mad at me for firing a disrespectful waitress just because she has kids. This happened a couple of years ago, and I was randomly thinking about it and thought you guys would get a kick out of how ridiculous it was. I had an employee who was a woman in her late 30s, early 40s, and was a stereotypical mom bee. I was a good deal younger than her. I was like 26 or 27. Right away, she made it clear that she had an issue answering to a woman who was much younger than her. She would talk down to me and made it clear that she knew more than me and shouldn't have to listen to me when she disagreed. She would frequently bring up the fact that I didn't have kids and that she had 4, and disregarded my management abilities as if none of it was any way relevant. Here are a few anecdotes of what I dealt with from her regularly. We had a problem with employees being on their phones excessively, her being the worst offender. I did an employee meeting where I reminded everyone that they weren't allowed to be on their phones at all, and that we would be a lot more strict on this moving forward. She interrupted my speech to say, "Well, the problem with your generation is you can't handle being off your phone for more than 2 minutes." I point out that she was on her phone all the time too, to which she replied, "It's different. When I'm on my phone, I'm looking for things for my kids. I'm not on there, not trying to hook up on Tinder or play Candy Crush." I told her the reason that people were on their phone didn't matter unless it was an actual emergency, and she rolled her eyes. She tried to argue with me about the fact that I would schedule her only during the day and not at night. Nights are more lucrative because customers buy more alcoholic drinks, thus higher tips. I reminded her that when she took the job, she was signing up specifically for day shifts, as most of my waitresses are college students, so they're not as flexible with the scheduling requirements. She proceeded to yell at me that her desire trumps theirs because she's a mom and she needs more money than them, and slammed my office door when I wouldn't cave. The final straw was when I heard from one of my waitresses, whom I'm very close to, said that this woman would talk about how she didn't respect me as a manager and often would bring up my lack of desire for kids. She also would say things like, "I'm not going to take orders from someone who hasn't even matured past 'I don't want kids' phase." Between the constant disrespect and the fact that she was barely passable as a waitress anyway, I decided to fire her. 2 waitresses confronted me, telling me that I was wrong to fire her and begged me to give her job back. They had no defense for her bad behavior, only, "She has 4 kids." If she has 4 kids depending on her, then it's on her that she repeatedly treated her boss like crap. It's not like I fired her over one incident. There was countless incidents of her horrid behavior, and the blatant disrespect for authority that she openly and shamelessly stated was rooted in ageism and my maternal status. So yeah, It's a shame that her kids had to suffer for their mom's behavior, but that's her responsibility and I have no regrets about getting rid of a bad employee. Our final story is posted by Love Spain. Guitar Karen demands my time slot because her son needs something to do after school. This incident occurred a couple of days ago, and I thought you guys would enjoy this story. A bit of backstory. I play electric guitar. I take lessons from a teacher who is absolutely the best in our area at what he does. He's been doing it for 30 years now, and he's really, really good. Understandably, also really booked. When COVID hit, everyone started doing online classes for school, and he lost a bunch of students because they'd typically take his class after school. Since they weren't in school or doing extracurricular activities, their parents, I guess, decided to yank them from their guitar lessons. One of the things that makes my teacher awesome is that he tends to give scheduling priorities to his older students, like me, 41, because they don't give him headaches about having to manage every little thing between this and that for school. It kinda sucks for parents, but he's had enough headaches rearranging everyone's life because little Johnny has the leading role being a rock in the school play. This matters because now that kids are starting to go back into the classroom where I live, parents are blowing up his phone trying to schedule their little darlings back into lessons, while us older folks have been dutifully attending or doing online lessons and paying the whole time. So if you've been doing that all this time and you've got the 3:30 time slot and you like it, that's where you stay. This matters because of Guitar Karen. Guitar Karen's son used to take lessons, but she pulled him out for the last 9 months or so. In-school classes are starting up again, and Guitar Karen wants as little to do with her kid as possible. So she has apparently enrolled him in every possible after-school activity that exists. I know this because my teacher rolls his eyes as our lesson is about to begin because his phone is pinging like crazy. I thought it might be an emergency or something, so when he returned to the room, I said, "Your phone has been going crazy." He normally turns it off during the session, and he just mutters something and then turns it off, talking about how this woman has signed her kid up for track, baseball, art, band, and now guitar, and in order to ensure that he has something to do every single day of the week, he absolutely must have the 4 o'clock time slot. You can imagine where this is going. Guess whose slot that is? Mine. I'm super flexible with regard to the days of the week, just not the time of day, because I work until then. I told him as much and he was like, "No, I'm not moving you, don't worry." He turns off his phone and we continue our lesson. Within 5 minutes, his computer starts pinging, and he's like, "Oh, good grief," and he shuts the lid. Blissful silence for the remainder of our lesson, until he opens the classroom door and there stands Guitar Karen, a kind of heavy-set woman with lips pursed like she was going to try and give you a kiss, and her brow looked like it was permanently stuck in the scowl position, and a Mama Bear t-shirt. I kid you not. "You!" she yells at me. Now I've never seen this lady in my life, and she doesn't have a mask on, and so my instinctive reaction is to social distance my butt right the hell away from her. But she's just Godzilla stomping her way in, knocking over a music stand, sending papers everywhere. She turns to shout at the teacher. "Why won't you give my son this time slot? He needs it. You need to reschedule your other students and stop singling my kid out because he has other activities." The poor guy can't even get a word in edgewise. She's standing in the doorway, so I can't leave. She looks me up and down. Me, who is very much a t-shirt and jeans type of lady, wearing a t-shirt that says, "I like metal, coffee, cats, and maybe 3 people." And she says, "I bet you don't even have a job. You're probably some washed out college dropout. Why'd you pick this time slot anyway? Is it because you knew someone like me might need it? You need to give it to my son." I also can't say anything because this woman won't shut up. Now let me reiterate that the teacher is still one of the chillest guys on the planet, but he nearly died last year from sepsis on top of the whole COVID thing, so he really was understandably upset when someone gets in his face and stabbing at his chest with their long fingernails, spraying insults without a mask on. He gets between me and her and says, "You need to back up or get out." They take their confrontation out into the hall. He tells me to go ahead and leave and that he'll handle her. I hear him tell this lady, "Listen, OP has been with me for years and I'd better never hear you insult her or any of my other students again. Your behavior is disgusting and you need to leave the premises now before I call security." We didn't have security in the building, but she didn't know that. He was all fired up. I think he could have landed her flat on her butt at that moment. She turns completely meek and is like, "What about the lesson for my son?" And at that point, the teacher was like, "Absolutely not." And she was like, but he needs this." And the teacher said, "Not my problem," and acted as if he was dialing security on his phone. She scuttled out of there as I was leaving the parking lot. I wanted to give my teacher the biggest high five. He told me he hasn't heard from her since, but I don't think this is the last encounter with her. I imagine she's the type of person who will come down every weekday at this time to berate whichever poor student has this spot because her son obviously needs it. That's all the stories I have for today. Links to the original Reddit post will be in the description box below. Please stop on by Reddit to show the OP some love and an upvote. If you enjoy my videos, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell notification to let you know when I upload new videos. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.